You wake up one morning and your ankles look like they belong to someone else. Swollen, tight, that strange puffiness that wasn't there 6 months ago. Or maybe it's the other thing, the one nobody talks about at dinner. You're getting up 3, 4, 5 times a night to use the bathroom, and by morning you're more exhausted than when you went to bed. And here's what breaks my heart. Most people over 60 assume that's just aging. They say, well, I'm getting older, my body's slowing down. But what if I told you that your kidneys are sending you a distress signal right now, and almost nobody is teaching you how to read it? My name is Margaret, and I've spent years researching the connection between ancestral nutrition and organ repair, specifically how the foods our grandmothers cooked without thinking twice contained compounds that modern science is only now beginning to understand. And today, I'm going to show you a soup. 3 ingredients. That's it. 3 ingredients that women in rural Appalachia, in the English countryside, in small farming towns across the Midwest, were simmering on their stoves every single week, not because they read a study, but because they watched it work. Their husbands came in from the fields less swollen, their mothers slept through the night, their children stopped looking pale, and now, finally, the research is catching up to what those cast iron pots already knew. Before we go any further, I need you to do me a favor. If you've been dealing with any of those signs I just described, the swelling, the fatigue, the nighttime trips to the bathroom, drop a comment below and tell me when you first noticed it. I read every single comment, and you'd be amazed how much it helps other people in this community to know they're not alone. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because every week we dig into research like this that can genuinely change how your body feels. Now let me show you why your kidneys are struggling and what this soup actually does at the cellular level. Here's something most people don't understand about kidneys, and honestly, it's not your fault, because unless you've had a serious kidney problem, no doctor has ever sat you down and explained this. Your kidneys contain roughly 1 million tiny filtering units called nephrons. Think of each nephron as a miniature coffee filter. Blood flows in, waste gets caught, clean blood flows back out. Beautiful system. Except here's the problem. After age 40, you start losing nephrons. Not quickly, not dramatically, but steadily. About 1% per year. By the time you're 65, you may have lost 20 to 25% of your filtering capacity, and you haven't felt a thing. Your kidneys are so good at compensating that they can lose half their function before a standard blood test even raises a flag. Your GFR, your glomerular filtration rate, that number on your blood work that measures kidney function, it can look quote-unquote normal while your nephrons are quietly burning out. And what's accelerating that burnout? 3 things. Chronic low-grade inflammation, which damages the delicate blood vessels inside each nephron. Oxidative stress, which is essentially rust forming on your cellular machinery. And glycation, which is what happens when excess sugar in your blood physically stiffens the filtering membrane, so it can't do its job. That's not me being dramatic, that's published nephrology. And the tragedy is that your doctor, who is a good person, doing their best in a 12-minute appointment, doesn't have time to sit with you and say, look, before we talk about medication, let me tell you about 3 foods that directly address all 3 of those mechanisms. That's what I'm here to do. The first ingredient in this soup is bone broth. And I don't mean the watered-down, store-bought carton that tastes like someone waved a chicken bone over warm water. I mean real bone broth. The kind your grandmother made by taking the carcass of a roasted chicken or beef marrow bones from the butcher down the street. The one who wrapped everything in brown paper and knew your family by name. And she'd put those bones in her biggest pot with cold water and a splash of vinegar and let it simmer low and slow for anywhere from 12 to 24 hours. You remember that smell? That deep, savory, almost mineral richness that filled the whole house? That smell was medicine being made. Here's what's happening in that pot at the molecular level. As bones simmer for hours, they release glycine, proline, hydroxyproline, and a form of collagen that breaks down into gelatin. Glycine alone is extraordinary for kidneys. A study out of the University of North Carolina found that glycine acts as a cytoprotective agent, meaning it literally protects cells from dying under stress. And where are your most stressed cells right now? in your nephrons. Glycine calms the inflammatory cascade inside those filtering units, specifically by inhibiting something called NFKB, which is the master switch for inflammation in your body. When NFKB is running hot, your nephrons are getting damaged with every heartbeat. Glycine helps turn that switch down. But that's not all. Bone broth is also one of the richest natural sources of glucosamine and chondroitin, which most people associate with joint health. But research published in the Journal of Renal Nutrition has shown that these compounds reduce the fibrosis, the scarring, that builds up in damaged kidneys over time. Think of fibrosis like scar tissue forming inside your coffee filter. The more scar tissue, the less filtration. Glucosamine and chondroitin slow that scarring process. Now here's the practical part, and this is critical. You need to make this correctly, or it won't work. Get 2 to 3 pounds of bones, ideally a mix of marrow bones and joint bones like knuckles or feet. I know, feet sound strange, but that's where the collagen is. Place them in a large pot or slow cooker. Cover with filtered water. Add 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. This is important because the acid helps draw minerals out of the bones, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, informs your body can actually absorb. Bring it to a boil, then reduce to the lowest possible simmer. Chicken bones go 12 to 16 hours. Beef bones go 18 to 24. When it's done, the broth should be thick enough that when you refrigerate it, it turns into a jelly. That jelly is the gelatin. That's how you know you did it right. If it stays liquid in the fridge, you didn't cook it long enough, or you used too much water. Drink 1 to 2 cups a day, ideally warm, as the base of this soup. The second ingredient is one that most people walk right past in the grocery store without a second glance, and that's whole barley. Not pearled barley, not the quick cooking kind in a box. I mean whole hulled barley with the outer bran layer still intact. And let me tell you why this grain was a staple in every farmhouse kitchen from the 1800s through the Depression era. Families didn't have the luxury of eating food that didn't work. Every calorie had to earn its keep. And barley earned its keep because people noticed something. The family members who ate barley soup regularly had less swelling. They seemed to hold their water better, not in the bloated sense, but in the balanced sense. They weren't puffy, and they weren't dehydrated. They were just right. Modern science now tells us exactly why. Barley contains a soluble fiber called beta-glucan in concentrations higher than almost any other grain. Beta-glucan forms a viscous gel in your digestive tract that does something remarkable. It slows the absorption of glucose into your bloodstream. And why does that matter for kidneys? Because one of the primary drivers of kidney damage after 60 is chronically elevated blood sugar. Even if you're not diabetic, you can have what's called impaired fasting glucose, that gray zone between normal and diabetic, and it's already glycating, stiffening, damaging those nephron filters. Beta-glucan from barley acts like a glucose brake. Research from the University of Toronto, which has done some of the most important work on glycemic index, found that barley beta-glucan reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 35%. 35%. That's a massive reduction in the sugar load your kidneys have to deal with every time you eat. But barley does something else that almost nobody talks about. It's one of the highest food sources of a compound called tocols, which are a family that includes tocotrienols, a specialized form of vitamin E that is uniquely protective of kidney tissue. A study from the University of Perugia in Italy found that tocotrienols reduced markers of oxidative damage in kidney cells by over 40% in laboratory models. Remember, oxidative stress is one of the 3 things destroying your nephrons. Barley goes right after it. For the soup, you want a half cup of whole hulled barley, rinsed well and soaked overnight if possible. Soaking reduces the phytic acid, which can block mineral absorption, and it softens the grain so it cooks into that beautiful, starchy, thick texture that makes the soup feel like a meal. If you can't find whole hulled barley at your regular grocery store, check the bulk bins at a health food store or order it online. Pearl barley has had the bran removed, and that bran is where most of the beta-glucan and tocotrienols live. Don't shortcut this. The hull matters. Now, the third ingredient is the one that surprises people the most, and pay special attention here because this is the one that ties the whole soup together and turns it from a nice meal into something genuinely therapeutic for your kidneys. It's fresh parsley, not dried parsley from a shaker. Fresh, flat leaf Italian parsley, a whole bunch of it, chopped and added in the last 5 minutes of cooking so it stays vibrant and potent. I can almost hear some of you saying, parsley? That little garnish that restaurants put on the side of the plate that nobody eats? Yes, that. And the fact that we've been throwing it away for decades is one of the great tragedies of modern eating because parsley was never meant to be decoration. In traditional European herbalism, parsley was classified as a kidney herb. Grandmothers in Italy, in Greece, in the south of France, they didn't put parsley in their cooking because it was pretty. They put it in because they knew it helped with swelling and helped the body release what it was holding on to. In Appalachian folk medicine, parsley tea was given to people with what they called dropsy, which was the old word for edema, fluid retention caused by failing kidneys. And now we know the mechanisms. Parsley contains a flavonoid called apigenin that has been studied extensively for its effects on kidney tissue. Research published in Phytotherapy Research found that apigenin reduces oxidative stress in kidney cells and inhibits the formation of calcium oxalate crystals, the building blocks of kidney stones. But apigenin does something even more important. It modulates a pathway called TGF-beta, the signaling molecule that tells your kidney to produce fibrotic tissue, that scar tissue I mentioned earlier. When TGF-beta is overactive, your kidneys scar faster. Apigenin helps calm that signal. Parsley is also a natural diuretic, but unlike pharmaceutical diuretics, which can deplete your potassium and magnesium and leave you feeling washed out, parsley is rich in both potassium and magnesium, so it helps your kidneys release excess fluid without stripping away the minerals you need. It's like nature built in its own safety mechanism. For the soup, take one full bunch of fresh flat leaf parsley, wash it thoroughly, chop its stems and all because the stems contain even more apigenin than the leaves, and stir it into the soup in the final 5 minutes of cooking. You want it wilted but still green. If you cook it too long, you destroy the volatile compounds that make it medicinal. 5 minutes, lid on, heat off. Let it steep like a tea inside the broth. That's the magic window. So let me give you the complete recipe in one clear sequence. Take 2 cups of bone broth, the real kind that gels in the fridge. Pour it into a pot with 2 more cups of filtered water. Add your ½ cup of soaked whole hulled barley. Bring it to a boil, then reduce to a gentle simmer and cook for 45 minutes to 1 hour until the barley is tender and the broth has thickened. In the last 5 minutes, stir in your chopped parsley. Put the lid on and turn off the heat. Season with a pinch of sea salt and a squeeze of lemon. That's it. 3 ingredients plus water. A bowl of this 3 to 4 times a week is what I recommend based on everything the research tells us. Now, I promised I'd share some additional foods that amplify what this soup is already doing, because once you understand the 3 mechanisms destroying your nephrons, inflammation, oxidative stress, and glycation, you start to see kidney protective compounds everywhere in your grandmother's kitchen. The 4th food you should know about is beets, and specifically raw beet juice, or grated raw beets. Now, I know beets are polarizing. Some people love them, and some people say they taste like dirt. But here's what they do. Beets are the single richest food source of dietary nitrates, which your body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a molecule that relaxes and dilates your blood vessels, including the tiny, delicate blood vessels inside your nephrons. A study from Queen Mary University of London found that dietary nitrate from beetroot juice lowered blood pressure by an average of 8 points systolic within hours. And blood pressure is the silent destroyer of kidneys. Hypertension is the number 2 cause of kidney disease after diabetes. Every point you lower your blood pressure, you reduce the hydraulic pressure slamming through those fragile nephron filters. 1 small beet, juiced or grated raw into a salad, 3 to 4 times a week. If you're on blood pressure medication, don't change anything on your own. Talk to your doctor, but add the beet and let the food work alongside whatever you're already doing. The fifth is something your grandmother kept in a glass bottle on the kitchen counter. And if you grew up in the rural South or Midwest, you already know what I'm going to say. Apple cider vinegar. Not the clear, filtered kind. The murky, cloudy kind with the mother still floating in it. That cloudy mass is a colony of acetic acid bacteria, and acetic acid is the active compound here. Research from Japan, published in Bioscience, Biotechnology, and Biochemistry, found that acetic acid improves insulin sensitivity, which means your cells respond better to the insulin your pancreas produces. Better insulin sensitivity means lower blood sugar. Lower blood sugar means less glycation damage to your kidneys. The study showed that just 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar before a meal reduced post-meal glucose by up to 20%. Your grandmother didn't know the word glycation, but she knew that people who took their vinegar tonic stayed healthier longer. 1 tablespoon in a glass of water before your largest meal of the day. Start there and build to 2 tablespoons if your stomach tolerates it. Always dilute it. Never drink it straight because the acid can damage tooth enamel and irritate your esophagus. The sixth is one that grows wild in almost every yard in America, and most people spray it with weed killer. Dandelion greens. If that doesn't make you a little angry, I don't know what will. Dandelion greens have been used in traditional Chinese medicine and European herbalism for centuries as a kidney tonic. The French literally call it pissenlit, which translates to exactly what you think it does, because of its diuretic effect. But like parsley, dandelion is a potassium-sparing diuretic. It helps your kidneys release excess fluid without depleting your potassium stores. Research has shown that dandelion leaf extract increases urinary output significantly within hours of consumption. Dandelion greens are also loaded with luteolin and chicoric acid, which directly combat oxidative stress in kidney tissue. Find them at farmers markets or harvest them from your own unsprayed yard. Sauté them with garlic and olive oil, or steep the dried leaves as tea. A small handful 4 to 5 times a week. Now pay close attention to the seventh because this one has a mistake that almost everyone makes: turmeric. You've heard about turmeric. It's everywhere now. Turmeric lattes, turmeric supplements, turmeric everything. And yes, curcumin, the active compound in turmeric, is one of the most potent anti-inflammatory molecules found in food. Research from the University of Colorado found that curcumin reduces kidney inflammation by suppressing multiple inflammatory pathways simultaneously, not just one. It goes after NF-κB, it goes after TNF-alpha, it goes after interleukins. It's like a multi-front assault on the inflammation that's burning your nephrons. But here's the mistake. Curcumin by itself has almost zero bioavailability. Your body can't absorb it. It goes in and comes right back out. You need 2 things to unlock it. First, black pepper. Piperine, the active compound in black pepper, increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. That's not a typo. 2,000. Second, fat. Curcumin is fat-soluble, so it needs to be consumed with a meal that contains fat, olive oil, avocado, butter, the fat in your bone broth. So the way to use turmeric is a half teaspoon of ground turmeric with a generous pinch of black pepper, stirred into something that contains fat, ideally your kidney soup. Without the pepper and the fat, you're wasting your money and your time. The 8th food is one that used to be in every single farm kitchen in America: sauerkraut. Real lacto-fermented sauerkraut, not the pasteurized kind in a can. When you ferment cabbage in salt, lactobacillus bacteria multiply and produce lactic acid, creating a probiotic-rich food that directly impacts kidney function through your gut. This connection, the gut-kidney axis, is one of the most exciting areas of nephrology research. Your gut bacteria produce uremic toxins, specifically indoxyl sulfate and p-cresyl sulfate, that your kidneys have to filter out. When your gut microbiome is imbalanced, it produces more of these toxins, and your already struggling kidneys work harder. Research from the University of Groningen found that probiotic supplementation reduced uremic toxin levels in patients with chronic kidney disease. Real sauerkraut, 2 to 3 tablespoons a day with a meal, helps rebalance your gut flora. Look for sauerkraut in the refrigerated section. If it's shelf stable, it's been pasteurized and the bacteria are dead. You want the alive kind. The ninth is ginger root, specifically fresh ginger. Ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shogales that are among the most studied anti-inflammatory compounds in the food supply. What makes ginger uniquely valuable for kidneys is its effect on something called the NLRP3 inflammasome, an immune complex inside your kidney cells that, when activated, triggers a cascade of inflammation and cell death. Think of the inflammasome as a fire alarm stuck in the on position. Your kidney cells are constantly responding to a fire alarm that won't shut off, and over time, that response damages the cells themselves. Research from Nanjing Medical University found that ginger compounds suppress NLRP3 activation, essentially unsticking that fire alarm. Grate about a thumb-sized piece of fresh ginger into your soup during the last 10 minutes of cooking, or steep sliced ginger in hot water for a tea. Daily use is the key, not once in a while. Daily. The 10th and final item on this list is not a food at all, and it might be the most important thing I share in this entire video. It's water, plain filtered water. I know that sounds almost insultingly simple, but dehydration is one of the most under-recognized causes of kidney function decline in people over 60. As you age, your thirst sensation diminishes. The hypothalamus, the part of your brain that signals thirst, becomes less sensitive. So you're losing water through breathing, sweating, and urination, but your brain isn't telling you to drink. Your kidneys need adequate water pressure to filter your blood. When you're chronically underhydrated, your blood becomes thicker, filtration pressure drops, your GFR goes down, and waste products start accumulating, creating more oxidative stress and inflammation. A vicious cycle. Drink enough water so that your urine is a pale straw color. For most people over 60, that means 6 to 8 cups spread throughout the day. Keep a glass on your nightstand, your kitchen counter, your reading chair. If you're on fluid restrictions from your doctor, follow those. But for most people, the answer is simply drink more water than your brain tells you to. Let me tell you about a woman named Dorothy. Dorothy was 68, a retired school librarian from a small town outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. Her doctor told her that her GFR had dropped to 52. Anything below 60 is considered stage 3 chronic kidney disease. Her doctor mentioned it almost in passing at the end of a routine checkup, said we'll keep an eye on it. Dorothy went home terrified but didn't know what to do. She started reading everything she could find, and she found her way to this kind of research. She started making bone broth every Sunday, using the bones from a whole chicken she'd roast for dinner. She added barley and parsley, just like I described. She had a bowl every night, along with a small salad with raw grated beets and dandelion greens. She added apple cider vinegar and water before lunch. She grated fresh ginger and turmeric into her broth with black pepper. She kept a mason jar of water on her kitchen counter and drank before she felt thirsty. She didn't stop any of her medications. She just started feeding her kidneys what they needed. 6 months later, her GFR was 59. Her doctor said, "Huh? That's unusual. It usually goes down, not up." It wasn't a miracle, but the decline had stopped and there was even a small reversal. Her ankles were less swollen. She was sleeping through the night. She told me she felt like she had her evenings back. Now I need to say something important, and I need you to really hear me. If you are currently taking any medications, especially blood pressure medications, blood thinners like warfarin, diabetes medications, including insulin, or any diuretics, do not add these foods in large quantities without talking to your healthcare provider first. Some of these foods can interact with medications. Beets can lower blood pressure, so combined with medication it could drop too low. Turmeric and ginger have mild blood-thinning effects. Dandelion is a natural diuretic that can change your electrolyte balance. I'm not saying don't use these foods. I'm saying use them in partnership with your doctor. Bring this video to your appointment. Say I want to add these foods to my diet. Can we monitor together? Any good doctor will respect that. The goal is always teamwork between you, your food, and your medical team. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we've talked about today. Your kidneys are not failing because you're old. They're struggling because they've been under constant assault from inflammation, oxidative stress, and sugar damage for decades, and nobody taught you how to fight back with your fork. Every single food we discussed today does one or more of these things. It calms inflammation in your nephron blood vessels. It neutralizes the oxidative damage that's rusting your cellular machinery, or it reduces the sugar burden that's stiffening your filtration membranes. Bone broth delivers glycine to protect the cells. Barley delivers beta-glucan to slow the sugar. Parsley delivers apigenin to calm the scarring. And the supporting foods, the beets, the vinegar, the dandelion, the turmeric, the ginger, the sauerkraut, and yes, the water, they all reinforce the same three mechanisms from different angles. That's not a coincidence. That's your grandmother's kitchen, working as a pharmacy, one pot of soup at a time. Here's your plan for this week. Tomorrow, go to the store or the butcher and get bones. Any bones. Chicken, beef, whatever you can find. Start your first pot of broth tomorrow night. While that's simmering, pick up whole hulled barley and a bunch of fresh flat-leaf parsley. By the day after tomorrow, you'll have your first bowl of this soup. Second, get a bottle of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar and start with 1 tablespoon in water before your biggest meal. Third, put a glass of water on every surface where you spend more than an hour. Your nightstand, your kitchen counter, your TV chair. Drink before you feel thirsty. Fourth, at your next doctor's appointment, ask for your GFR number if you don't already know it. Write it down. That's your starting line. Check it again in 6 months and see what happens. If you found this helpful, I need you to do one thing for me. Share this video with someone you love who's over 60, a parent, a spouse, a friend, a neighbor. Kidney disease is called the silent epidemic because people don't know they have it until it's advanced. You could be the reason someone catches it early enough to turn it around. And in my next video, I'm going to talk about something that surprised me deeply in my research, the connection between your kidneys and your sleep. It turns out that kidney function and sleep quality are linked in ways that most people, and honestly most doctors, have never considered. There's a specific pattern of sleep disruption that is actually an early warning sign of kidney stress. And there are 3 things you can do before bed that can improve both your sleep and your kidney numbers. You don't want to miss that one. Make sure you're subscribed so it shows up in your feed. I'll see you there.